Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. It is a summer Sunday. 1 weekend left after this. I'm getting depressed. Anyway, summer Sundays are a good time to catch up on articles that I hadn't gotten to. Here's one from the Hollywood Reporter. It is, of course, the 44 most powerful players in podcasting in 2025. Let's just skim down this and see what they say about the comedians. Do we count the smartless guys? I don't think so. I believe these are in alphabetical order by last name, which brings us to Tony Hinchcliffe. The Hollywood Reporter tells us a former staffer on the Comedy Central Roast series, Hinchcliffe helped usher in America's post-woke era. When at a Trump rally, he told that joke. You remember that one about the floating island of garbage? That one? The next day on his popular Kill Tony show, he said, "I apologize to absolutely nobody." Tony was asked what his current favorite podcast is. He said, "Mine," not Johnny Mac's. He meant Kill Tony. Thought I had missed something here. They have on the list Michelle Obama with Craig Robinson. I was like, wait, Craig Robinson is doing a podcast with Michelle Obama? Well, a man named Craig Robinson is, but it's not that Craig Robinson, not the guy that quit comedy as part of a stunt. Not him, a different guy. That would have been very interesting had I missed that one. I mean, I'd pay attention to that. Amy Poehler on the list. Joe Rogan, listed as talent on the Joe Rogan Experience. The Hollywood Reporter says in the past year, the longtime self-proclaimed centrist waded deeper into partisan politics and demonstrated the influence of the medium over which he reigns supreme. Rogan's 3-hour sit-down with then-candidate Donald Trump last October and his subsequent endorsement were credited with boosting Trump's re-election campaign. Matt Rogers and Bowen Yang are on the list for Las Culturistas. Theo Vaughn, listed as talent. This past weekend with Theo Vaughn, we are told Vaughn's podcast has risen to third on Spotify's chart. That's a random poll. Why'd you pull Spotify's chart? On the strength of the host's everyman blend of humor, vulnerability, and straight talk, which makes disaffected dudes see him as their Mark Twain, and powerful men across the ideological spectrum, Trump, Vance, Sanders, Zuckerberg, want to sit with him. The born and bred Louisianan, a touring stand-up comic and sometime actor, recently garnered headlines for his commentary about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, which he's called a genocide. That paragraph was all kinds of loaded. Wow. Conan O'Brien on the list. A lot of this list is not performers. It's a lot of like executives in suits and friends of the Hollywood Reporter, etc. But under Conan, we're told in May, Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend began to release full video episodes. It worked. Team Coco's views increased 17% from the prior year. Andrew Schultz, listed as talent. The mustached, fast-talking comedian who yaps opposite Charlemagne the God on The Brilliant Idiots, hosted Donald Trump on his ascendant cultural commentary showcase Flagrant just before the election for a talk that went viral among Schultz's key demo of post-partisan young men. But by July, he'd had his Howard Beale on-air moment. Do you youngsters even know what that means? I know what it means, but I'm ancient. Howard Beale is the guy in the movie Network that yells, "I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore." Do you even know what that is? You may have seen it as a meme. Anyway, breaking with the president about a variety of grievances from policy issues to the Jeffrey Epstein betrayal, mirroring an apparent broader shift in the president's coalition. They asked Andrew which podcast completely changed how you think about the medium. His answer, Joe Rogan Experience. It has defined and redefined the genre over and over again. Honestly, I don't even think it gets enough credit. And that's it in terms of comedians on the list. Deadline had done a lengthy article about social media these days, starting with Matt Rife. Matt is often asked what advice he'd give to those looking to make a mark online. Matt Rife says he has no idea. He says, "My only advice is you're so effed. There's nothing you can do whatsoever. It's so 1,000,000% out of your control now. The algorithm changes so much. You can build a fan base on social media. It's great, but it's getting harder and harder and harder to do, and you can't just rely on it." Rife admits he was super lucky to have been discovered, broken through, found my audience before doing so became harder. I'm not sure if this article was a paid piece or a partnership. Why I'm confused is they had a big logo that said powered by Punch Up Live. So I don't know if it was a paid piece, but in the piece, regardless, they quote Danny Frankel, the CEO of Punch Up Live. He says ticket sales by way of Instagram have increased nearly 15% as Punch Up has expanded to host more and more comics. He said, I think going into this survey they did, you would have expected that YouTube would play a significantly larger role because everybody's putting all their comedy specials there, and you would have expected that TikTok would play a larger role because that is or was a bit of the talk of the town. And I think now everyone is unclear on exactly what's happening with the long term of TikTok and what's happening in the short terms, and are people still investing in it? Comedian Paul Elia said, I look at Instagram as the portfolio app where you put the best of your best. Facebook is where old people go, and that's where you just put all the whatever stuff. TikTok is for kids. You can have a massive TikTok following, but it doesn't translate to ticket sales because all your fans are 13, so no one is going. Snapchat, same thing. Instagram is probably the most tried and true app for sure. If your following on Instagram is strong, people know you, and those people on Instagram have money to buy a ticket. Facebook, I'd say the same thing. Anyway, you will find that in the Comedy Means Business newsletter that Deadline has, a very long piece. Hey, thanks to Adam for sending this over. Augie Smith had posted this on Facebook. Hey, comedians, I've spent much of the last week watching submissions to the Big Sky Comedy Festival. I love stand-up comedy, so this is one of my favorite parts of the festival producing process. Here are a few tips for submitting to festivals. Okay, comedians, you paying attention? Augie Smith says, try to keep your tape between 4 and 6 minutes. Remember that festivals are watching a lot of submissions, and sending something that's over 15 minutes is completely and totally cuckoo bananas. Think of it as a late-night set and hit as many punchlines as possible. Get to the first joke quickly. Unless it's your whole act, don't do crowd work. There's no reason to use notes in a 5-minute set. I know it's always an easy thing to do, but the actual quality of the tape is important. If the sound is so hollow it's hard to hear you, it makes it difficult to judge your set fairly. Let me jump in. I used to give similar recommendations in my radio career to people who wanted to be talk show hosts and then to comedians who would send things in. So here's what happens. As a media executive, I mean well. I really want to get to stuff. I would have, back in the day, depending on the year, a pile of cassette tapes, then CDs, then a folder with digital submissions. Anyway, I would intend to someday get to it. And then every now and then on a Friday, I'd be like, oh, it's the end of the week. All the work's done. Let me go into the pile. Once I hit play for talk shows, you had, 2 seconds to get my attention because I would do what's called distracted listening. So undistracted listening is, as a radio exec, you get in your car and you drive somewhere and you park like in a parking lot and stare at trees and just focus on the audio and you have your phone off. Distracted listening is you hit play in the office and then your coworkers come in and distract you and ask what we're ordering for lunch, and and the phone rings and you answer the phone, you get distracted by an email. That's distracted listening. I do distracted listening because that is how people consume media. So like right now, are you sitting in the dark only concentrating on my voice? Maybe you are. Maybe you're winding down to sleep. Or are you driving a car and like kind of half listening? And that's fine. So that's distracted listening. So when you send a tape in, I'm going to hit play, and you got to be really good really quickly. Also, I would tell people, I don't want your best of tape. I'm glad you had on the president at one point. I want to hear Tuesday hour 2. I want to hear what you are on a normal, boring day. Augie Smith writes, I know this sounds obvious, but send a set where you did well, even if the jokes are good. If the crowd is digging you, that affects my view of your act. All right, the Fringe is wrapping up. The Guardian said the Edinburgh Fringe has almost 4,000 shows. What does it take for a stand-up to stand out? Alfie Peckham writes, the Fringe is in full swing, and I'm looking for my posters, which, given the function of a poster, doesn't bode well for the marketing of my stand-up hour. Johnny Woolley is co-founder of the clown ensemble Stamptown. Woolley has some opinions on posters and said, I've always had a pet peeve for comedians doing funny faces on their posters. It's always been a turnoff for me. Yes, I hate comedian headshots with the dopey face. Just take a nice picture. You don't have to make your wacky face. Stop. Woolley said, when I started making posters nearly a decade ago, no comedy posters looked cool, and I was really influenced by album art and movie posters. There are so many posters of comedians sitting on the toilet. Ugh, I'm interested in trying to make art for the posters. It feels like it could be a more long-standing representation of that show. Jordan Gray said, I like having a stupid title and a picture that makes you think that I'm very, very serious about this. That lack of self-awareness is quite funny. Adele Cliff was at the Fringe. Voice Mag caught up with Adele. What advice would you have for an artist considering bringing a show to the Fringe? Her advice, stay out of my way, nerds. I love it. If you had the power to change one thing about the Fringe, what would it be? Wrong. Finally, a different answer. She says, I would make the Edinburgh Fringe Artist Pass universal, so it's accepted at all venues to fill empty seats. Artists get to see the shows and fill up the space. 2 birds, 1 stone, everybody wins. Look at that. You thought she was going to complain about how much it cost to stay at the thing. And that is your comedy news as it was on a summer Sunday. Let's get some beaching this week. Oh, my goodness. The worst day of the year is the Tuesday after Labor Day. That is absolutely my least favorite day of the year. My favorite day of the year is Friday afternoon. Well, that's not a day, but Friday into Memorial Day weekend. You have the whole summer in front of you, wide open skies. There's so much possibility. Once we get to Tuesday after Labor Day, it's just like, oh, winter is coming. I have to work more because I teach. Can't go to the beach. I'm inside all the time. How depressing. See you tomorrow.